Hey guys, so we had Goosebumps episode 6 come out on Disney Plus last night. So let's talk about it. So firstly, Harold Biddle is probably the least scary ghost since Casper. I mean, seriously, I know it's meant to be a kid's show while at the same time having blood and sexual references, but it's not scary, and it's like the opposite from when I was growing up and we had all these scary shows for kids, which aren't really that popular these days. But in my day, like, they were actually scary. They were genuinely scary while at the same time being for kids because it didn't have blood or anything like that. And it's just been a weird cultural shift that way. Like, they can't scare kids, but they can show blood, and it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, old woman complaining about things being different in her day. Okay, so moving on. This is a show that I still enjoyed. Look, I still thought it was a good show in terms of I'll keep watching it until the end, but it definitely has so much room for improvement. I mean, like I said in my previous video, this would have worked so much better if it had been a sort of anthology, standalone Monster of the Week episodes with the whole Harold Biddle story being one episode, not this whole overarching thing. And it just felt like this story didn't need to be told to the length that it was told. It's interesting, but it's not that interesting. So talking about Casper, that's actually a really good movie to watch for Halloween. Same for Dead Silence, which I think is a really underappreciated James Wan horror movie that's about dummies and ventriloquism acts. So if you want something that's like this but actually scary, definitely go watch that. So this episode, it really confirms that they show too much in trailers, because even before I'd seen the first 5 episodes of Goosebumps, I could have probably guessed like 90% of what this kid told in his story without seeing the first 5 episodes at all. And it would have been nice if we had a bit more of a wow moment, like, I can't believe that happened, but there was no surprises, no twists or turns. We saw everything coming. So before we get into the story, if you're interested in seeing the rest of my Goosebumps reviews or my Five Nights at Freddy's review that's coming out next week, please feel free to subscribe or just give this video a like or comment. It really helps me out. So anyway, so Harold Biddle is still in Mr. Bratt's body, the teacher. So he's there in his hunting lodge cabin, which is like my dream home, just in the wilderness with no neighbors. Anyway, so they're there. He's talking through his, I don't know how they're related exactly. I know they're related somehow, but Mr. Bratt's telling his students as Harold how Harold had a great grandfather named Ephraim, something like that. Anyway, this guy is a magician. He isn't successful at all. He can't even provide for his wife and his kid. And then suddenly he finds Slappy, and he gets famous basically overnight through Slappy and Slappy's powers and him coming to life on stage. So anyway, that should have been terrifying, but it just wasn't scary at all. Anyway, so he gets famous, and of course there's a price that he has to pay for his fame. Slappy tells him he wants him to do something for him, and we never actually find out what that thing is that he wants him to do because it's not revealed in this episode. It'll probably get unfolded later on. But it involves setting something on fire, so obviously it's not good. Ephraim doesn't want any part of it, so he says, Slappy, we're done. He buys the hunting lodge for himself, and he goes into the basement, puts Slappy in a box and seals him behind a brick wall and thinks that that's going to be the end of it. Hopefully nobody will ever find him, which we know obviously doesn't happen. So Slappy's powers are limited in what they can do. He can't get himself out from behind the wall, so he seems to be a pretty weak villain if he can't even get himself out of a wall. But anyway, so he has to wait until the Biddle family moves in. So Harold and his parents move in. Harold finds him. Harold has been badly bullied at his last school, and he starts to sort of go the same way at the new school. He sort of seems like he's going to be left out a lot. But then Slappy comes along and helps him to become popular. And yeah, he does his ventriloquist act, and you wouldn't think that that would be something that would make you popular in high school, but it does through Slappy. So Harold has sort of like a distorted view of himself and his life because of everything that happens at his old school. So he starts to think that he's getting bullied again. Probably Slappy sort of urges that feeling along in him. Because his personality grows darker, he becomes detached from his new friends and his parents, and he even goes as far as to turn his parents into dummies, like we see Ephraim, his great-grandfather, do to his manager. So we don't know if that spell that he uses to turn them into dummies that he got from Slappy actually kills them, or if it ended up being the fire that killed them, but either way they die. So we find out that Harold actually owned all the cursed items, like the mask and the camera, which his dad gave him. So obviously they have a personal meaning for him, which is why he uses them later on. So Nora, when she was in high school, we see that she actually sees Harold and Slappy talking to each other in a way that the dummy was obviously alive. So she tells everybody, they think that she's crazy. Nobody believes her, just like in the present day. But then Harold does a stand-up act and he ends up insulting everybody. And some of them actually at this point do want to help him. Some of them just want to get revenge. So they decide to go over to his house and steal Slappy. And then the fire happens. Yeah, it's obviously an accident. They didn't mean to do it. And it does feel very reminiscent of like Freddy Krueger, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Those cliche tropes that have been done before so many times, where the kids keep a secret and then it comes out in the next generation. And I actually really enjoy that when it's done correctly, but this feels like it had a lot it needed to improve upon. Just the script in general felt really weak. It felt like there was no twists and turns, no surprises, and this was meant to be a big cliffhanger type episode. So if you've seen it, let me know what you think down below. What do you think they should do for the remaining few episodes? I know they're going to have one at Horrorland, I think it's called, so I'm excited about that, because that was one of my favourite books growing up, so that'll be good to see. Anyway, like I said, please subscribe, comment, all of that. Thanks, guys.